We always talk about education struggling for money because we do, right? Depending upon the community you are, I mean, money is a premium. An influx of money can help provide resources in areas that go unfunded or underfunded. So if a business is running a video ad, of course they're going to pay you a certain amount in order to do that, or to have their graphic on a rotating basis show up on the board. Allowing schools a new revenue source to take that money from the local businesses and give it, and those businesses are giving it back to the school community. Again, enriching the education and opportunity for whatever that school needs, for whatever resources they need, for whatever the students need to have greater opportunities for success.
Hello and welcome to the Future is Clear, Teach Like It's 2045 webcast series. My name is Scott Carr from CESA 2. Today's topic area is transforming education through digital media environment, not only for students, but for the entire community. Joining us today is Don Goble, who is the Coordinator of Educational Services at Digital Scoreboards, a multimedia organization that uses digital scoreboards to engage schools and the communities in social media engagement. Welcome, Don. Thanks for joining us.
Scott,
how are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's a pleasure to speak with you today and share some stories and ideas. This is a great opportunity.
Yeah, it is. I was super excited to stumble across you. I heard you on Sylvester Chisholm's Global CTE podcast. I think it was maybe this summer, and I was like, I need to reach out to this guy. Some of the things that you're doing is just phenomenal. It's such a crossover from what is needed in education around digital media literacy, and how you uniquely blend the two together. So I'm really excited. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about how did you get where you're at? Pretty unique story.
Well, I'll start in the present day. So right now, I work for Digital Scoreboards, which is it sells products, LED products, scoreboards, scores tables, a lot of different services like that, which is not what I do. So I was actually a user of Digital Scoreboards. The school that I worked at I'm a retired public high school educator. I was in public education for close to 25 years, 19 years at one particular school, where we had a large scoreboard that developed into more scoreboards. But the point that I was involved was I was a media education teacher, and I taught a lot of broadcasting and film instruction, video production, creative video production, and I did that for a long time, offering students an outlet to be very creative in a very rigorous, academically rigorous public high school where I was in St. Louis, Missouri. So I was a user of the product, and when we got it, it was brand new. And so one of the things that I had a specialty in doing even before I became an educator was just kind of, I was a media professional. I was a coach. I did sports broadcasting. I need to develop a sports media program. So what I'm doing right now for Digital Scoreboards is what I developed for the most part at the school I work for, and having kids involved, creating media content for athletic events, school events, really trying to engage the community as it grew beyond just an event-based opportunity to really engaging the entire community by working with local businesses, foundations, parent groups, you name it. Really offering kids real life, real world learning opportunities to work with professionals, to hone their creative crafts, to work on all the soft skills that I really feel that, and professionals and businesses believe they need from this generation that's tied to technology. So while we're using technology, we're really trying to develop the entire whole person, the whole young adult, to create opportunities for their life. And much as the way mine started way back in the 80s, which we can get into later, but I was not your typical high school student. I struggled in school, but I loved learning as long as I was really interested in what I was learning about. And in my case, it was sports and media. So it's fun to kind of marry that here today as a retired educator, kind of working out my last chapter.
Yeah, as I say, you look way too young to be retired. So let's shift that, and you're just doing some different things.
Well, I retired early. So, I was in education for, like I said, close to 25 years. I was not of age to retire fully as an educator. But
Yeah.
my son graduated high school. I wanted to graduate with him through some personal choices, decided to follow a different path. And luckily for me, Digital Scoreboards came along and offered me this great opportunity, because now I get to work with schools all over the country, not just my own classroom, and really try to cast a wider net to impact students through this
Yeah.
type of digital media learning.
Yeah. Well, I look at you as a gem in our field because you stumbled onto something really cool just from your passion, when you were in education. And we'll talk a little more about that history here too, because I think it's really relevant. But now you're doing more to help really challenge our thinking around that social media literacy approach uniquely. And I think it really opens the door for some opportunity for our students because this is an area that they really, really enjoy. I've heard you talk a lot, and I've read a lot of your work. And one of the things that really opens the eyes is that you leverage the fact that a lot of our students want to get into social media, right? Not knowing maybe that isn't where they're going to end up, but you're able to leverage that and use that kind of as a carrot to do some other things. But let's go this route. Education does need to change. You and I have talked about this. Tell me, your perspective on that, kind of how you've stumbled into this, but why do you see education really needing to change and involve some of the stuff that you're doing?
So it's a great question, and it's been one I've been trying to answer for as long as I've been in education. It's that we've lived in a media world for a long time, right? Like television became very popular in the 60s. Social media has been around since the early 2000s with YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. And as those applications, the apps come and go and change, to TikTok today. It was Snapchat for our kids. One thing that's always been astonishing to me is that the educational environment never really seized it as an opportunity to teach
Mhm.
life skills to all of us who were taking part in this type of media consumption every single day. And while it's very important, I don't disregard and just kind of get rid of the idea that math and science and humanities, social studies, and all English, all of those are critical. This media component, I have always believed, is just as important, and yet it's not really a focus. I think for many years for schools, it's been a hard idea or concept. Well, how do we teach it? Mostly it was through consumption. Like, let's watch some media news programming and let's dissect it and kind of think about it and what choices are being made and why did they do this and why did they report on that and who did they leave out? Okay. However, with such a heavy media consumption by all of us, not only our kids, but adults are worse than kids. The statistics show as far as how much we're staring at our device and using it on a
Yeah.
daily basis, and many ways addicted to it. And that we're not using it to find ways to teach our young generations proper ways of using it. So while we've developed all these bad habits and run into trouble and issues throughout the years, we've never seized that as an opportunity to use it in a positive way. How do schools do that? For me, the last decade, it became really obvious that through sports was a way, sports through schools, because sports have taken off with social media for as long as it's been around to promote their sport, promote their team, promote their athletes. And it's the same way that schools could do it as well. So while there may have been a struggle, well, how does creating media in a school really make sense when I have curriculum I need to get to? Why not create a media curriculum that can answer some of the issues, questions, problems, or offer students ways to create solutions to problems they see that we don't,
Mm.
new ideas to be entrepreneurs through the eyes that they're looking in perspectives that they have every single day. So that really has always kind of been my charge. And in the last decade, it became apparent to me that sports is a great way because that's a language every high school or every
Yeah.
school speaks. And so with every team and athlete trying to put their workout on Instagram or Facebook or whatever Twitter account that the school deems appropriate, let's use those channels and opportunities now to use our high school sports teams and high school groups, organizations, activities, and teach kids proper ways to send out content, create content, communicate, understand commenting and the positivity and negativity that derives. And really, Scott, at the root of all of it was, I went to college to become a broadcast journalist, and I lived in that news environment, and I saw the underbelly of it. So it's always kind of been my goal to kind of train and teach some positive narratives about it, rather than only looking at the media in a negative light and only social media in a negative light.
Yeah.
So finding positive avenues for kids to explore.
Yeah. Well, bless your heart, because it's needed. It's needed, really. Tell us a little bit about that story. It goes back to, I think you were involved in a TV studio, and then how did you bring it into the educational system? Because you've been doing this for a long time. So go a little bit deeper into that story, if you would.
I grew up in a Chicago suburb in the 80s, but my high school had a fully functional television studio and a radio station that reached our local community.
Mm.
That was my introduction to it. That's the only thing that got me to high school. I just struggled with everything else. I probably in some ways just have some kind of learning issue that I was never really identified or figured out. We didn't talk about those things back those days. So, but it was that radio and TV station at my high school that brought me to school and got me energized and excited to try to learn. So that's what I went to school for. I worked in business for a while. Through some life occurrences, I decided to become an educator. In that same realm, I wanted to find a space or create a space at a school that would allow me that type of opportunity that I had to hopefully reach a student like myself, to give them a better high school experience than I had, even though that part of the high school radio TV was amazing, but that was about it. So I was like, okay, that might be it for some students, or maybe for some students, they just need a creative outlet. I need to find a place that can do that. Fortunately for me, I found Ladue High School in St. Louis, Missouri. There was a man named Charles Marshall who was an art teacher at Ladue for many, many years. He was a TV junkie as well. So he piecemealed together this studio, and he taught TV production. He retired. Another teacher took it over. She ran with it and taught, young kids, and then she retired. And fortunately for me, that was my opportunity. So over the course of a few years, I was able to adopt this amazing learning space that obviously was built in the 80s. I came in the 2000s, needed to be upgraded, right? So it took many, many years to do that. An incredible partner. My work wife was Martina Davidson. She taught me a lot about it because she worked with both the retired teachers before me. So bless her, because she was my partner in crime my entire 2 decades there. You need that. You need teamwork. You need a trusted adult in that building that you can really partner with and get a lot of really innovative things done. You can't do it alone. So Martina and I were a team, and we figured out, how are we going to grow this thing? Because we wanted to give kids opportunities. And, we really didn't reinvent the wheel. High schools have theater, they have sports, they have newspaper, they have band, they have communities within the high school. So we wanted to make a media team, right? A TV team, at the time back then that became the thing for these students. And that thing evolved over the many decades, from TV to film, to then social media took off, to then the scoreboard and sports media. And it was all about, that's the vehicle, but it was always about just giving kids a space where they could really let their minds explode, feel safe, feel creative, not feel judged, but just feel like they could really, I don't know, find new avenues to learning that maybe they didn't think existed, or lean into some passions that they already came to the classroom with. And so that's what we did, and that's what I did, and that's what I loved about my job the most, working with those kids, helping them define and live out their passion. That's what I love about this job now, is that not only I'm not limited to that school, I now get to work with schools all over the country. And that's what gets me up and energized every single day, is to find ways for those schools, wherever they're at, whatever means they have. They don't need a TV studio. They don't need a radio station. While that was certainly awesome for me, and if you can build that, we can help you do that, but you don't need it. But it's just, even if it's the 4 walls you have, how can you utilize that in some way or shape or form to get kids involved in new and exciting ways that delves into that media education, whether it's through sports or whether it's through broadcast journalism or film, whatever, it doesn't matter the avenue, just creating that space. And so that's what's exciting about my job now, is I get to help principals and superintendents and then teachers figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, as I kind of listened to some of your other pods and read some of your information also, you did find where it aligns itself. Talk a little bit about the history behind that, some of the experiences, because, right, I mean, we see that it can fit in a school system, but
Mhm.
where does it fit? What does that look like? How did you discover that?
That's a great question. So I had a very niche area, and that's the other thing I think schools struggle with. They were like, okay, well, this is going to be a broadcast journalism, a broadcast production, video production, film
Yeah,
production, very niche area. We can maybe put it where we have a photography class, or we have a newspaper or yearbook class, or where I was, we had, culinary classes and airbrush and a lot of different opportunity, woodworking. We could put it over there. Career tech ed is the life and area where a lot of this lives. But again, it's kind of a niche area where the school will feel like, well, we can have one teacher doing it. That's the life I lived, and those that are in my shoes understand we're kind of on a department of one. We're an island of one. It's like one teacher, and
yeah,
if it's a program, a media program is going to take off much like any newspaper or photography. It's like the passion of the one teacher. Well, my eyes were opened up a little bit differently in the last few years when I began the sports media program at my former school, and now I've run for almost a year here with Digital Scoreboards. In that, through my research, I always wanted to develop two pathways for kids, a career and collegiate pathway. So while majority of my kids were going to go to college, where would that fit at college, and how can I develop a preparatory college experience for them? While at the same time creating a career pathway for those kids that may or may not go to college, but could develop skills that would help them in the job market, no matter if it was media related or not. So it was those two pathways we had to kind of consider. And when I did my research for the sports media, I learned very quickly that it's not a communication, film, video, digital media
wow,
platform. It falls in the business school. So while business is one of the top, if not the top major, that kids wanted to declare, okay, now we could send them off to college with very specific business skills or in the business department while also offering granting these kids. So not only then was it cinematography and videography and game day operations, we are now talking about
wow,
marketing. We're talking about social media. We're talking about creative design, so graphic design. We're talking about business relationships out in the community. So you name it. You can pull that from the business departments at your high school, but really those are life skills, just being able to talk to someone outside of the phone, right? That face to
yeah,
face.
right,
And even if it
right,
is, through email or direct message or whatever, just all the forms of
yeah,
communication that are required. So when I talk to schools, it's like, okay, yes, you need a teacher to be the champion of it. But if you have a staff of people if you have that newspaper teacher, yearbook teacher who has maybe some camera equipment they could help work with or utilize or leverage those kids who have fantastic photography skills and storytelling, to the graphic design classes, and those kids are learning how to start from scratch to create graphic design, to the business
yeah,
courses that are offering all the business acumen of presentations and social media design and graphic design and all the business principles and communication. I mean, you're starting to marry a lot of different areas in one. And so while one teacher, that'd be great to do, which is kind of what I did. I wore all those hats. I've been coaching schools to kind of get those teachers to be communicating with each other to offer really a broad perspective of kids that they can draw upon in that demographic. Because I always used to say, the students that came to my class were just not my students. They were the students of every other teacher in that school. So how could we impact them similarly? Like I gave video projects. Well, maybe there's a, a visual presentation project that instead of a poster board
yeah.
project, that kid could do a video project or a social media marketing plan or something along those lines. So really just trying to open up some avenues of innovation.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. What comes to my mind is this, is that I do a lot of work with school districts and helping them understand you're probably doing a lot of great work, but a lot of the times it's in silos, right? And so
Yeah.
right. And I can hear in your conversation over the amount of time that you've done this, this really has had that cross-cutting cluster alignment. Talk a little bit about you just mentioned, that it does. Talk a little bit about the benefits that you see when you are cross-cutting clusters and aligning them together where you can see this collaboration of teachers coming together and this becomes larger than just one class.
Well, that opens up a whole larger conversation, but there's the transformation, I think, where we could take steps. And again, it's not new. There are many models that are out there that a lot of schools are doing successfully, but I wish more would adopt. Much of
Yeah,
it, I think, is project-based learning. So rather than having, content
yeah,
delivered, content regurgitated, content
yeah,
assessed, could we create a project environment that would draw upon different levels of skill and content knowledge to solve a singular problem, but
correct.
needing a knowledge base in a lot of different subject matter?
Mm.
Is that one way? Another way, and here's a simple way. I think I told you the story, or I'll share it now. I had a student who was a C and D student in my class as a sophomore. He was doing about C or D work in my class too, but I could tell he was really savvy with digital media and technology. And I was like, what's and he was brilliant, but he was not getting good grades. He's like, I'm just kind of bored in some areas. I don't know. I don't see what's applicable. How am I ever going to
Yeah,
use, how am I ever going to use this in real life, Scott? Mr. Goble, how am I
yeah,
ever going to use this?
right.
We said that in our day.
Hear it all the time.
So I worked with him and I was like, well, what do you really want to do? And he's like, I love the weather, Mr. Goble. I love the weather. I love tracking it. I love all the calculations of it. I love just following storms. And I was like, man, there's math involved in there. There's science involved in there. But he wanted to be a weatherman. So he wanted to be on TV. So I said, Ian, what if you are our meteorologist, our local meteorologist, our school meteorologist, and I let you report on the weather? Would you be interested in taking my advanced class? Because I think you'd succeed. Oh, you wouldn't let me do that, would you, Mr. Goble? I said, of course I would. Let's do it. Well, he signed up. I let him do it. Scott, he became one of the hardest working students I ever had,
Wow.
ever. He would come in 4 days a week. He created his own weather graphics. He didn't want to borrow anything. He used a Keynote iPad to create his own graphics. He'd get up at 4 in the morning to track
Wow.
storms. He reported and then he's like, how do we do this? Okay, so the professional meteorologists are putting their weather forecasts on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook at these times of the day, but each has a little different piece of knowledge and content information I'm going to deliver. And what happened, not only was he engaged, every single grade in
Wow.
every single class skyrocketed because now he was excited. Here's where I related with him. He was excited to come to school every day. His father and mother were like, thank you. Like this gave him purpose so much that he went to Nebraska University and he double or triple majored in broadcast journalism and meteorology. I think math or science was in there too. Going to be a meteorologist, went into that field, but then became now. And here was a kid who never wanted to have his face seen on camera. He was kind of hiding in the shadows. Don't look at me type of guy. He's been a top news journalist now in Nebraska for years, on camera
Wow.
every single day. He's all over social media, doing
Wow.
all of the skills as a professional that he did back as a junior and senior in high school because I gave him an opportunity. I don't know how much
Yeah.
I taught him other than to follow your passion. Let's look at the model what the professionals are doing. I gave him some direction and guidance, but this kid felt like he had a purpose. He had a passion and he followed it. He's living it. And I could tell you stories all day long about stories like Ian, but it's trying to ignite something in a child that way where it would be great, to have teachers and departments and classes coming together, which I think is absolutely feasible. But if nothing else, we can strip it
Yeah.
away and start offering those kids a reason and an attachment to what does this look like for them long term, not just because they have to fulfill a requirement, but because they want to learn it. And this is going to be applicable longer term.
Yeah. Yeah, you found the secret sauce. You gave relevance to that student. And you're right. You're hitting it right on the head. The opportunity for a student to see purpose will ignite everything else. And that navigation, that's what I really like about the stories you're talking about and the piece that you bring to our CTE world, if you would, but it should come into the whole educational environment, not just CTE, is that you bring that piece of relevance, you bring that piece of something that students can see meaning in, which makes all the other work and all the other, the academic components of it, meaningful also, where they're going to strive and do better there. It's a great example. Talk a little bit about the because I know this isn't just a classroom. This goes into, like what you talk about as a game day experience or different experiences that are outside of a classroom that kids really engage in, where it becomes, much more of a production. Talk a little bit about what that looks like. How do the kids organize that? What's the role of the educator? Have at it. I want to hear this.
Yes, it's again, I'll try to stay succinct here. So the when we have a scoreboard placed in a stadium or a basketball gym or a for volleyball or wrestling area or swimming pool, okay, that's the technology, and we want to have students be able
Mhm.
not only to create content for those opportunities, but we want kids to be able to run those scoreboards, right? Kids can do it very simply. The game day software on there is super easy to use, but it takes someone to coordinate it. And then we want to maybe have cameras at these events to film not only the event, but we want to capture the fans and the band and the cheerleaders and the dancers and the
Mhm.
pregame and okay, all the activities. We want to capture it all. So we need to have cameras out there. Some may stream this live on YouTube or on Facebook. Others may just stream it on their board. So we need to have kids running camera switchers and operational boards. So there's all these different jobs that can happen as operationally for the event, for the athletic event, for whatever the event is in your stadium or gym. We want to give kids opportunities to do that. Now, those events obviously happen outside the school day. We can't recreate that during a
Yeah.
50-minute period on a Tuesday. So there's a few different ways that you can kind of encourage kids to go. You can make it kind of part of the class environment, like many schools do with choir or band. They have 2 concerts a semester or 4 for the year they have to attend at night. Okay. So you could do that. And so now you split up the kids and you divvy up the calendar and you have them attend those after school events to be able to run the cameras, run the scoreboard, run all the stuff, right? That's real life learning. That's
Mhm.
exactly what every college and professional athletic sport team is doing. That's what they're doing at concerts, musical concerts, right? So you're giving these kids real life, hands on, chaotic learning. That's I love that. One of my former students, when I
Yeah.
asked him to reflect, he's like, nowhere else could I have a chaotic environment where I could learn and actually feel successful and confident. Well, that's what it is. You can't, nobody knows how the event is going to go. You know, there's going to have problems and issues. So you're teaching kids problem resolution, troubleshooting, what to do when. You can't create that in a regular classroom. So we want to come up with those ways. Some schools are not including that as far as their classroom production goes. So, like what my school did and a lot of others, they hire a staff of kids. So, if you're 16 years or older, you can make a certain amount per hour or game day check. Now they're earning money. They're earning money to go work these events, whether they go work all of them, whether they come to some. Now they can earn money. This is a real paying job. This is not working at fast food or retail, which a lot of our kids are asked to do to create some income. Let's make it now. This is like applicable skill that they may use. Not that the other ones aren't, but for some of these kids, this media experience or athletic experience, kids either they played sports, they love sports, they want to be a part of that environment, or they love technology, or they just love events or whatever, and the thrill of the energy. So we're giving them that kind of experience, which I think is amazing. There's a lot of other schools that are creating after school clubs, not a new model, right? But instead of meeting after school from 3 to 4:30 or 4 to 5, whatever, they have to meet at night. The game is at 6 and you'll be done at 8 and you're working the game. And so now our club is going to be working the game, or, we're going to work this function or that function. We're going to record that event. And so you're building these teams of kids, giving them real life experience, not only being a part of a team, but having it feel like a job, potentially maybe a career someday.
Yeah.
And they might learn, I don't want to do this. But isn't that just as important as offering kids opportunities that say, I do want to do this? And so, and of doing it in a very structured, educational, positive environment that we can help kind of just build up their self esteem and confidence to have them work outside of the high school wall. And it can go much further than that. I think we'll go into it a little bit more when we partner with businesses. But the game day experience for me is that's what it wraps it around for the students.
Yeah, that's some really good stuff. And Also what I think about when you talk about that experience as I'm listening to it, the natural life skills, durable skills that are just naturally built right into those opportunities, on a day-to-day basis. Talk a little bit about what some of the skills that you're seeing built and the attractiveness to those, the want to grow, students growing around those types of skills, and also a little bit about this isn't a day-to-day class. It's like it's never ending. So the project doesn't end on a Tuesday, so it's continuous. So there's always things to do and
Yeah.
what's happening.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I'll start with a
Yeah.
story of one of my former students, and a lot of them come in. They're as freshmen, they're shy, and they're trying to figure out their way in the world, who they are, and what they're going to be. And so I had one student, Mate, incredibly intelligent, but very shy, very very aware of kind of like or over aware of how people kind of viewed him or perceived him. And he came in, but incredibly creative. He could draw. He was a cartoonist, animator, taught him some video skills. But really, the first couple of years, it was hard to get him to speak. He was like the sweetest young boy you'd ever talk to. Like he just so polite. Like I wish all kids could be like this. But I wanted him to come out of his shell a little bit. And it wasn't until he got really involved by about his third year in working in our advanced media classes, working with outside clients, working with some media companies, working with some really passionate students who were not afraid to talk and pulling him out of that to the point where I actually brought him with me to an event where I was able to recruit a couple of kids to the St. Louis Cardinals fantasy camp. And they were going to document everything that happened at this fantasy camp, which is, guys and gals who were, close to 30 or older, trying to live out the dream of being a professional baseball player.
Right.
So we were going to document the week of these players playing with famous Hall of Famers and baseball legends for the Cardinals. We were going to post it on social media. So, and their deadline also was by the end of the week to have content play on a scoreboard for the championship game. So they had like couple day deadlines, and every day we were putting stuff on social media. It was very real. In order to do that, you had to speak to the players. These were and he was a huge baseball fan. So iconic players.
Wow.
He knew, and his parents knew growing up. He had to speak. Mr. Ozzie Smith, Mr. Smith, can I ask you for an interview? I've got a photo of him going up to Ozzie asking for an interview. And talk about pulling him out of his shell. That by the time this experience was over for his college portfolio, I asked him to record a reflective video talking about all the lessons that he learned. Mate was the young guy who talked about learning in a chaotic environment. You can't recreate that. And all of the different life lessons he learned about how he felt like a part of a family and a team. And it had very little to do with the technical pieces and all about how he just felt welcomed and how it just opened his eyes to a world he hadn't allowed himself to view yet, to the point where he became so excellent at his craft technically, confident in his skills and who he was as a young person. He earned a full ride scholarship to USC's film and animation school.
Hmm.
And for a family who weren't sure how they were going to send this young boy, this really intelligent boy, to college, now they didn't have to worry about that. Not only didn't have to worry about it, he's in like the best school in the country for what
Wow.
he wants to do. All through the steps of offering these types of opportunities had some to do with technical, but I guarantee you, had he not come out of his shell and learned how to work with others, meet deadlines that were not just it's due Friday in 2 weeks, it was rolling. Like I always would say, just when you think you're done, you've only just begun. And because there's always something, media doesn't stop. It's like let's find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think it's those types of experiences that allow kids to, again, find out who they are, follow their passion. And it goes away from the pure structure of learning, of delivering content on a Monday, assessing it on a Friday.
Yeah.
Days and weeks just kind of roll, right? Because the events never stop. And if they do, it's like, let's find the next thing. Like social media doesn't turn off. That's 24/7.
Right.
We can always find
Wow.
stories to tell. Let's do it.
Yeah. Wow. What a great story. And I bet that's happening endlessly in this work, in the classes that you were involved in, and where this work is taking place. Talk a little bit about how it does bring families and your community together, and let that then lead into how this can be a real benefit for your business partners and how you can utilize that to, even generate some revenue.
So my philosophy was rooted in my personal experience, right? So the scoreboard was going to be more about it's going to celebrate the athletes on the field, but we wanted to
Mhm.
celebrate the community. That was a very distinct goal from our superintendent all the way down to our principal and athletic director. Like, how do we get the community involved and make this a community event? Not only games, but just find other events. And so, the way to do that was to first start out by celebrating the athletes because that's tangible, right? Like games are going to be played. But then again, identifying and understanding all of the different activities happening around. And on these scoreboards, one of the things you can do is you can put advertisements out there, right? So businesses can promote their so a business could send you a graphic or a photo slideshow or a short video you could play in between quarters or at halftime or pregame. You can put them on little modules on the board so they're just kind of rotating, right? Like it's going back and forth like a digital slideshow, right? So that's one way you can do it, and that pulls people in, right? They want their advertisements seen by people, but I think it goes way, way deeper than that. So in a few ways, one, as kids would advance in my curriculum, they would be able to work with those local businesses
Hmm.
to start creating that content. So now we're offering like real life internships and marketing internships to have them work with a client during a class period. Beyond that, these events were more than athletics, as we talked about. So the educational foundations, the parent groups, the alumni associations, reunions, first responder nights we would have. Just think of anything and everything in a community and think of ways then partnering with the school that you could celebrate that on the field, have a video or some photos or a graphic displayed on the scoreboard, bringing everybody in. We would have elementary nights, so incorporating our other schools in the district, having, celebrating fourth graders at certain elementary school on a certain night. Like the ideas are endless, but what you think about is you kind of look around your community, where you live, who do you really want to celebrate? Who do you want to include? Who do you want to involve? And it became, we got people to games, but we got them to create events. Our education foundation would have a run walk in our stadium, and then we'd be able to put content up on the board. Any kind of charity event that would happen in the evening, we'd have some Special Olympics things going on. A lot of the ideas, again, are endless, but it's all about who can we celebrate, who can we profile, who can
Yeah.
we really just kind of get involved when we have this huge gathering. And if it's the athletic event or whatever the event is, as the igniter of it, while we're there, who can we energize and celebrate and throw up on the screen or show that, tell stories that might go untold and celebrate different organizations and groups within our school or in our town that are doing great things because we
Yeah.
have this vehicle of a scoreboard to do that. And getting kids to be the leaders and the drivers of what those celebrations are through content creation and game planning and organization. Again, real life skills
Yeah.
one of the greatest things we would always get was, students really put this on? Students are doing this?
Right. I can imagine.
Yes, like they can do amazing things when they're
Yeah.
given a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you had said, it can be a revenue source. I mean, if you
Yes.
coordinate it the right way, right?
Well, when the businesses get involved, obviously they're not putting their
Yeah.
ads up for free, right? So
Right.
they could, again, transforming the way school works. We always talk about education struggling
Hmm.
for money because we do, right? Wherever situation you are, depending upon the community you are. I mean, money is a premium. Schools
Yeah.
constantly need, and money doesn't solve all the problems, but an influx of money can help provide resources in areas that go unfunded or underfunded, whatever the case may be. So if a business is running a video ad, of course they're going to pay you a
Sure.
certain amount in order to do that, or to have their graphic on a rotating basis show up on the board. Of course they're going. So allowing schools a new revenue source to take that money from the local businesses and give it, and those businesses are giving it back to the school community. Again, enriching the education and opportunity for whatever that school needs, for whatever resources they need, for whatever the students need. to have greater opportunities for success. And so it's a no lose situation, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because you're partnering with local people. You're maybe generating some money for what the school needs and student needs. You're celebrating everybody on the field. It just makes all the sense to kind of marry them all together.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're definitely creating something that people want. And
Yeah.
right. Everyone wants to get involved with these types of things, and that's when you have that high level of interest, high level involvement. Yeah, you definitely could see the benefit for businesses to help support it, whether that's financially. It's a win-win, I think, for everybody involved. So here's a question for you as we kind of come towards the end of the podcast. Um, when I heard your podcast with Sylvester, I had like three schools I went out to right away, and I'm like, this is something you really should consider, right? And so my enthusiasm was met with a little scratch of the head, like, I'm not sure this sounds expensive, and this is
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot involved here, and
Mm-hmm.
we're at the beginning stages of shifting mindsets, let alone creating something this large. But how can you change the mindsets? How can you convince, what are the steps that we need to take so we can convince schools this is a direction to take? Here are some easy first steps. How would you approach that?
That's a great question. It's heavily involved. I would say this, as an educator who struggled with, I didn't have much in a budget. It's like these scoreboards are elaborate, they're big, but so
Yeah,
how do we pay for these, right? Like, how does that even happen? I was shocked to kind of understand, like, not only the cost of them, but then how schools are paying for them. And having the business partners is one way, generating that revenue can pay for it. I'm not in the sales of it, so I'm not going to pretend to be. But what I do know is that there are solutions to do this that every school in any size community not only wants to take part in, they are taking part in. And if
yeah,
they aren't, they're trying to think about how to do it. And one way to do it is be open to the idea, learn about what those solutions are. There's different financing, there's different media business revenue generation opportunities. There's local donations maybe that might happen. There's a lot of different ways to kind of play it, and really the financial piece should not be stand in the way of the conversation
yeah,
to drive it forward, because on the back end of it is what I'm excited about. Is it's the educational opportunity for students and the community engagement for everyone. And so if there is a solution to financially cover something that can have such a greater impact on the back end, I think that's the being open to the conversation and talking with someone or talking to a partner school who's doing it, find out how they're doing it,
yeah,
because it's really, there are many ways of accomplishing it. And even if it's not, and I'll tell you this too, because what I do is, thankfully, it's not just attached to the sale of a product. I'm working with schools who just want to implement media education. So just then having the conversation about, all right, what do we currently have in our school that allows kids this type of educational opportunity? Is
yeah,
there a way to enhance it? Is there a way to start it? Is there a way to partner it with what, cobble it together at first and kind of pilot and see what this would look like? I mean, that's what I love doing, is really strategizing with those schools about, starting small, starting with whatever you have, starting with wherever, whoever you have to get involved. There's a million ways to get started, whether it's with one student or 30 and everything in between. So
yeah,
having that conversation and thinking about looking internally, are we offering kids these types of opportunities? Yes, we are. Fantastic. Is there a way to enhance it? Maybe, maybe not. We're doing great stuff. Thank you. Like, keep it up. Keep. If the answer is, yeah, we could enhance it a little bit, let's talk about ways to enhance it. We're not ready for that right now. No problem. Hopefully you will be.
right.
Like, hopefully you will engage in that. And then it's like, we're 100% interested. We're not doing that. I don't know where we get started. Have the conversation with individuals like me or individuals like you to discuss, this is how we can start with a little kernel and let it kind of pop from there.
Yeah, yeah. And there's always the option. You've created and pulled together some really unique curriculum around it. So there is the option to be able to have you support that direction. Um, Again, I can also help with that, and be able to, get that step forward, right? I mean, that's something that could happen.
Well, that's where, I was really attracted and interested in the work that you're doing, is because you offer something very similar. You've got a structure, you've got ideas, concepts that are proven that you can instill in a school to get started, to where they don't have to start from scratch and wonder, how is this going to happen?
Yeah.
We have proven methods and we
Yeah.
can come with resources to make it happen right away. And no matter the size they want to start. So that's what was really great about partnering with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Um, Before we head out, tell us a little bit about yourself, or Digital Scoreboard. What's happening? What do you got going on? What's going to be new out in front of us? Let's hear it.
Oh my gosh, I'm in Toms River, New Jersey. This is where I found love late in life, and I left St. Louis and moved out here, and loving my time on the shore. So I work from home, but I work with schools all over the country. Heading to a big athletic directors association conference to talk about, in my area, the DS education. So DS is short for digital scoreboards. And as I mentioned, Digital Scoreboards sells all the different LED products for high schools and small colleges. Um, I am taking this an entirely different direction to really
Nice.
develop an educational division that's not only going to impact schools with a sports media program, but also long-term maybe help them do a full depth and breadth of a media production, which is my background, whether it's broadcast journalism or film or all the different forms of video and social media production that's involved. So that's my goal for 2026. I've already taken steps to get there and excited to roll that out for schools. And as you mentioned too, I have all this curriculum that I developed, and it's all going to be live online shortly. So I'm excited for that to be just relatively easy again for any teacher to be able to adopt. I really wanted to make something that was simple and structured and organized, but truly successful from the jump. And I've been excited to kind of see how schools have implemented it. I'm excited for the end of the year, because this will be the first full year that my partner schools have utilized it, to get some really strong testimonials and stories from them to see how it worked out for them.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, as we end the pod, I always ask one final question to our guests. So I'm going to throw it at you.
Okay.
In our tag, the future is clear. Teach like it's 2045. What do you feel education will look like in 2045, or what do you think it should look like?
I'll try to be as succinct as possible. My fear is that it'll look very similar to as it does today, because I worked for 20 years, 25 years in education, almost 20 at one school. While there were some developments and changes, I don't think enough that truly parallels what's happening in our society. My hope in 2045 is that not only is like my area emphasized, but that vocational skills are more emphasized and more, again, in 20 years, more accepted, not only accepted, encouraged, challenged, put into the mainstream of every other form of education, so that we are really not only offering kids a full depth and breadth of opportunity, but a lot of different pathways to go, rather than maybe just the college route. I think college is a fantastic route for many of our students. And I think for many other students, we didn't get into that today, but for many others, that might not be the route. Or for families, the cost of college is not possible. What do we do for those kids? In 2045, our high school education system, and between now and the next 20 years, has to answer that problem.
Yeah. Agreed. Well said. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, Don. If people are interested in getting in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, they can email me, dgoble, at digitalscoreboards.net. You can go to digitalscoreboards.net and look us up there. And right under the About, the drop down is DS Education. DS Academy is the curriculum program. You can find a lot of information out like that. They can follow us on socials as well. Instagram, it's Digital Scoreboards. You can find us Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find us all there, and more information about myself.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks again, Don. Keep up.
Thank you for the opportunity, Scott. Great to see you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Keep up that great work.
Thank you.
And as we depart, remember, the future is clear. Take care, everybody.